All right, let's dive right into this. Today, we're unpacking an absolutely fascinating explainer that centers on a really intense, almost unbelievably dramatic collision between two totally opposite ends of the spectrum. We're talking extreme grinding poverty on one side and absolute untouchable elite wealth on the other. It's kind of part thriller, part deep social commentary, and honestly, it's just completely captivating from start to finish. So, as we go through this, I really want you to keep this central question in the back of your mind. What actually happens when a broke delivery boy crashes into a millionaire CEO? Because, as you'll see, this is not just about a simple fender bender in the rain. It's about massive stakes, dangerous misunderstandings, and the heavy, crushing class divisions that drive this whole thing forward. Section 1. The setup and the crash. Two completely different worlds collide. To understand how these worlds collide, you have to understand our protagonist, Chinmo. Every single day is a grueling fight for survival for him, braving the rain and exhausting hours as a food delivery rider. But here's the thing, Chinmo didn't just fall through the cracks of the system. He scored a 600 on his college entrance exam. In the Chinese education system, a 600 is literally off the charts. He was bound for the wildly prestigious Peking University. But he actually intentionally sabotaged his final subjects, giving up his entire future, his education, even his girlfriend, to start working immediately. Why? Because his dad has severe kidney disease, and Chinmo desperately needed cash for the agonizingly expensive medical treatments. Then comes the inciting incident that sets everything ablaze. It's late on a rainy night. Chinmo gets hit by a luxurious white Range Rover. The driver? A stunning woman in red high heels named Shin Yu-Chu, who, it turns out, is a millionaire CEO. She's in a massive rush, jumps out, shoves about 2,000 yuan in cash into his hands for the hospital, scribbles her number on a sticky note, leaves her ID card, and just speeds off. It's an 8-minute encounter, but it triggers a completely violent chain reaction. Things just rapidly spiraled out of control. Day 1 is the crash. By day 2, Chinmo tries doing the right thing by calling the number to return her ID. But Yu-Chu's arrogant younger brother Yu-Hao picks up. He instantly assumes Chinmo is just some poor scammer trying to blackmail his rich sister. So Yu-Hao sends a squad of violent thugs to Chinmo's tiny apartment. They brutally beat him, stomp right on his hands, and completely smash his only lifeline, his phone. Section 2. Enter the second uncle. A brutal reality check for the elites. This guy is frankly my favorite wild card in the whole story. He's Chinmo's fiercely loyal, heavily tattooed, street-smart uncle who just rolled into town to buy kidney medicine for Chinmo's dad. He takes one look at Chinmo's bruises, and man, the uncle does not care if you drive a Range Rover or own a massive corporation. If you touch his blood, he's coming for you. You see, Chinmo's whole mentality is endure and survive. Keep your head down. Take the hits. But the uncle? His rule is strike back and demand respect. He actually tracks down that white Range Rover, blocks it in the middle of traffic with his beat-up car, and beats Yu-Hao's bodyguard down with a steel pipe. Then, he extorts 5,000 yuan directly from CEO Yu-Chu right on the spot to avenge his nephew's smashed phone. But then, right in the middle of all this violence, we get this deeply humanizing, quiet pause. Chinmo, feeling totally alienated and just exhausted by how cruel the city is, sits on a sidewalk sharing some leftover chicken wings with a stray dog named Boo Boo. And this tiny moment actually connects him with his previously hostile roommate, a girl named Linify. They bond over feeding this little dog, realizing that, in this massive, unforgiving city, they're really all just strays, hustling for their next meal and desperately trying to find somewhere they actually belong. Section 3. The warehouse standoff. The ultimate misunderstanding reaches its peak. Of course, the peace doesn't last. The tension ramps right back up to an 11 when Chinmo gets a massive delivery order to the 29th floor of the elite Kitty International Hotel. And guess who the customer is? Yep, the CEO herself, Shin Yu-Chu. What unfolds here is absolute chaos. The hotel's security guards illegally detain Chinmo in a room for hours, falsely accusing him of stealing, literally just because he's a poor delivery worker. Yu-Chu comes in to interrogate him, acting completely superior. Pushed to his absolute breaking point by the beatings, the false imprisonment, and her ridiculous arrogance, Chinmo snaps. He hits her with a psychological blow. He tells her the delivery food she just ate, it was his leftovers, and he spat in it. Her reaction? She gets his delivery account permanently banned. He's totally ruined. Right after he's fired, though, hotel guards drag Chinmo into a van. Yu-Chu is frantic, screaming that Chinmo's friend has kidnapped her brother, Yu-Hao. They speed to an abandoned warehouse, and guess who's sitting there? The second uncle. He had completely decimated Yu-Hao's elite bodyguards. Sitting at this warehouse table, all the cards are finally laid out.
Yu confesses he ordered that initial beatdown because he thought Chinmo was a blackmailer. The whole war, all the violence, was built on this really tragic assumption that a poor person calling a rich person must inherently be running a scam. This brings us to a massively defining moment. Yu, suddenly realizing she and her brother ruined an innocent guy's life, looks at him and says, "I'm sorry, I'll compensate you." She offers him a huge payout. But Chinmo looks at this millionaire and outright rejects her money. Even though he is desperate, totally jobless, and his father is literally dying, he chooses his dignity over her cash. He refuses to just let her buy a clean conscience. Section 4. The Social Divide. A dinner of insults and hypocrisy. So, Chinmo's decision shifts the power dynamic completely. He gets invited to a birthday dinner for an old high school friend, Gao Su. To save face around Gao Su's fancy college-educated friends, Chinmo cashes in a favor and asks the glamorous Yu to tag along. Let me tell you, the atmosphere in that private dining room is unbelievably toxic. It's a room full of incredibly arrogant college grads, especially Gao Su's girlfriend, Luqian. They're sitting there drinking wine, literally mocking delivery workers right to Chinmo's face. They're calling them uneducated, dirty, and beneath them, entirely clueless about Chinmo's genius-level test scores or the heartbreaking sacrifices he made for his family. But then, and this is incredible, Yu steps up. With absolute authority, she silences the snobby girlfriend, looking right at her and stating firmly, "Don't judge a situation you don't understand." It's just a huge moment. This millionaire CEO, the same woman who previously looked down on him, publicly defends Chinmo's honor. She even holds his hand under the table to support him against the crushing snobbery of his own peers. Still, the psychological toll on him is immense. On the ride home in Yu's luxury car, Chinmo just turns his face to the window and cries silent tears. He's overwhelmed by the suffocating pressure of this massive class divide. He's watching his friends move up the corporate ladder while he's trapped by his family's medical debt, completely at the mercy of wealthy people. Section 5. The Ultimate HR Test. The Power to Make or Break a Future. Okay. This is where it gets brilliantly theatrical. The very next morning, Yu summons Chinmo to her office for a twist literally no one saw coming. She actually places Chinmo in the HR director's seat for her hotel. With total enthusiasm, she hands him the power to interview the final candidates for management positions. And who happens to walk through that door? Coincidentally, it's his old friend Gao Su, the snobby girlfriend Luqian, and a few others from that toxic dinner party. The very people who ruthlessly mocked him the night before now have their entire careers resting in his hands. Now, Chinmo doesn't ask them those standard, boring corporate questions. Instead, he drops a brilliant mini quiz on them, based purely on harsh financial reality. He asks, let's say you earn a starting salary of 5,000 yuan. Which housing do you choose? A cheap village room for 500, a shared apartment for 1,000, or a solo apartment for 2,500? So let's look at how they answered. Luqian, the snob, immediately jumps at the expensive solo apartment, completely proving she is arrogant and totally unrealistic about entry-level finances. Then another candidate, Pei, goes for the shared apartment, showing she's actually grounded and logical. And Gao Su, he also picks the shared apartment, which proves to Chinmo that beneath it all, his friend really does still have solid core values. Chinmo uses this to evaluate their real worth, way beyond their fancy college degrees. Watching all of this unfold on the security cameras, Yu makes this incredibly sharp observation. She says, "This society is very practical, and people are often hypocritical." She did this on purpose. She wanted Chinmo to see exactly how fast Luqian's and Gasu's attitudes flipped from mocking a broke delivery boy to aggressively kissing up to the powerful new HR director. But Yu isn't just playing some corporate game here. She corners Chinmo in a final standoff in her office. She challenges him to finalize the rejection of Luqian. And the dilemma is brutally real. Does Chinmo reject Luqian, making the right objective business choice, but risk completely destroying his friendship with Gasu? Or does he let her slide just to save his friend's face, thereby compromising the whole company and accepting the exact same hypocrisy he hates? She essentially forces him to take full responsibility for his new power. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative question to think about. If you were handed the power to ruin the very people who looked down on you and mocked you, what would you do? Would you take revenge, or would you make the objective choice and walk away with your dignity totally intact? This explainer is just such a brilliant study of class, pride, and survival. Let us know what you would do in Chinmo's shoes, and as always, stay curious.